Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about a strange experience that many people have had at least once in their lives. A moment when your mind becomes completely absorbed in what you're doing. Distractions disappear. Your thoughts become quiet. And somehow, everything just seems to work perfectly. Psychologists call this mental state flow. But what exactly is the flow state? Have you ever been so focused on something that you completely forgot about time? Maybe you were drawing, or coding, or writing, or solving a difficult problem. At first, everything felt normal, but then something changed. Minutes started to feel like seconds. Distractions slowly disappeared. And for a moment, it felt like your mind and your actions were perfectly connected. I remember experiencing something like this myself once. I was working on something that required a lot of focus, and before I realized it, hours had passed without me noticing. Psychologists actually have a name for this experience. They call it flow. The idea became widely known through the work of the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi in his famous book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. According to his research, flow is the state where a person becomes completely absorbed in an activity. Your attention becomes fully focused. Your mind stops wandering, and everything you do feels smooth and effortless. In a way, it's one of the most powerful mental states we can experience. But what exactly happens when someone enters the flow state? To understand this, let's imagine a simple situation. Picture someone learning to play the piano. At the beginning, it feels difficult. Their fingers move slowly. They press the wrong keys. They stop and start again. It can feel frustrating. But over time, they keep practicing. Their hands become more familiar with the keys. Their movements become smoother. And one day, something interesting happens. They start playing a piece of music that is challenging, but not impossible. Suddenly, their mind becomes quiet. They are not thinking about mistakes anymore. They're not thinking about the clock. They are simply playing. The music flows through their hands. And before they even realize it, an hour has passed. That moment is flow. According to Csikszentmihalyi, flow usually appears when two important conditions come together. The first one is clear goals. Your brain needs to know exactly what it is trying to do. When the goal is clear, your attention becomes easier to control. For example, an athlete knows the goal of the game. A painter knows the image they want to create. A programmer knows the problem they are trying to solve. When the direction is clear, the mind can fully concentrate on the task. The second condition is even more important. It is the balance between challenge and skill. Think about this for a moment. If a task is too easy, you get bored. Your mind starts wandering. You lose interest quickly. But if a task is too difficult, you feel anxious. You might even want to give up. Flow appears in the middle of these two extremes. When a challenge is just difficult enough to stretch your abilities, but not so difficult that it overwhelms you. This balance creates what Csikszentmihalyi called the flow channel. Video games are a great example of this. If the first level of a game is too easy, players get bored. If it is impossibly hard, they stop playing. But good games slowly increase the difficulty as your skills improve. And that keeps you completely engaged. Another fascinating thing about flow is what happens to our sense of self. Normally, our mind is full of self-conscious thoughts. What do people think about me? Am I doing this correctly? What if I fail? These thoughts constantly interrupt our attention, But during flow, something unusual happens. Those thoughts disappear. Your attention is no longer on yourself. It is fully directed toward the activity. You're not thinking about how you look. You're not worrying about mistakes. You are simply doing the task. And strangely enough, this is often when people feel their happiest. This idea might sound surprising. Many people believe happiness comes from relaxation, from watching TV, from doing nothing, from avoiding stress. But Csikszentmihalyi discovered something very different. When people were asked about their most satisfying moments in life, they rarely talked about relaxing. Instead, they described moments when they were deeply engaged in something challenging. Rock climbers described the intense focus required to climb a dangerous wall. Surgeons described the concentration needed during a complex operation. Athletes described the feeling of being completely inside the game. Artists describe the joy of creating something new. In those moments, life feels intensely meaningful. Because the mind is working at its highest level, flow also changes the way we experience time. Sometimes time seems to move faster. You start working, and suddenly 3 hours have passed. Other times, time feels slower. Athletes sometimes describe moments where everything seems to move in slow motion. They notice tiny details. They react instantly. It feels almost automatic. This happens because the brain is using all of its attention on the present moment. Nothing is wasted on distractions. So the big question becomes, can we create more flow in our lives? According to Csikszentmihalyi, the answer is yes. But it requires changing the way we approach our daily activities. First, create clear goals. Your brain focuses better when it knows the exact target. Instead of saying, I want to practice drawing, you could say, I will finish one detailed sketch today. A clear objective makes concentration easier. Second, adjust the level of challenge. If something feels boring, increase the difficulty. If something feels overwhelming, break it into smaller steps. The goal is always the same. Stay in the middle between boredom and anxiety. Third, remove distractions. Flow requires deep concentration. Notifications, messages, and constant interruptions can easily destroy the state. That is why many writers, artists, and programmers prefer quiet environments. And finally, practice consistently. Flow becomes easier as your skills improve. The better you become at something, the more likely you are to experience this powerful mental state. Over time, this creates a positive cycle. Skill leads to flow. Flow creates enjoyment, and enjoyment motivates you to continue improving. Csikszentmihalyi believed that understanding flow can help us redesign the way we live. Instead of constantly chasing comfort or endless entertainment, we can focus on building activities that challenge us and fully engage our attention. Because when the mind is fully engaged, life does not feel empty. It feels meaningful. So the next time you find yourself completely absorbed in something, when time disappears, when distractions fade away, and when the activity itself becomes the reward, you might be experiencing one of the most powerful states the human mind can reach, the flow state. And maybe the real question is not just what flow is, but this: how can we design our lives so we experience it more often? Thank you for listening.